Hi, I'm Jim Barnett. My mom used to say I was born with my motor running. I love to be on the go. I'm on a mission to check out as many interesting places and as many interesting people as I can. And along the way, I want to see who's got the best food. Hey, you're welcome to ride along, but I gotta go.
You know, with circuses in existence all around the world, and for centuries, it's got to take a lot of nerve for a small Midwestern town to refer to itself as the circus capital of the world. Well, Baraboo, Wisconsin does just that. And we're on our way there to find out just how they can say that.
When you pull into town, it doesn't look like it'd be the center of anything but farming. But when you start to check things out, you realize there's some sort of a circus connection here. There's historical markers about circuses. The town square's guarded with circus animals. The county courthouse has circus artwork. Even the garbage cans are just a little circusy. Now, come on. We all know that the idea of a circus didn't start here in Wisconsin. It didn't even start in this country. Circuses can be traced back to ancient Rome and Greece, where crowds watched trained animals, a chariot race, and maybe a battle or two for entertainment. That was referred to as a circus. But the name circus was usually referring to the building rather than the actual show. In fact, when you hear about the Circus Maximus in Rome, it was the name of the building, not the performance. The first promoter to bring horses, acrobats, and clowns together for a single show was Philip Astley in London in 1768. He was also the guy that said a circus ring should be 42 feet in diameter, because that's the best size for a horse and acrobatic rider to perform in. He went on to create a circus empire with 20 huge amphitheaters spread out all over Europe. In 1792, the circus crossed the Big Pond and arrived in the United States, Philadelphia, in fact. George Washington even stopped by for a show in 1793. But how did such a big business like circuses get connected to such a small town like Baraboo, Wisconsin? And how can they call themselves the circus capital of the world? What we need is an expert.
But where in the middle of Wisconsin do you find a circus expert? Where do you find a circus expert in Baraboo, Wisconsin?
Well, how about the Circus World Museum located at the original site of the Ringling Circus right here in Baraboo? That's where we found ringmaster David Salutis.
And I've been told that you are the circus expert in Baraboo, Wisconsin.
Well, I was actually born in a Ringling house, so when that is the way you start out, you kind of go that direction.
It's in your blood.
That's right.
Okay, I need to ask you this. How can Baraboo make the claim that it is the circus capital of the world?
Well, the largest circus of all time was right here in Baraboo, the Ringling Brothers Circus. And they actually owned the 3 largest circuses of all time, and they were all based out of Baraboo, Wisconsin.
Did they go by different names?
Yes, they did. The Ringling Show was here, Barnum and Bailey also, and Adam Forepaugh Sells Brothers. I think altogether we have about 5 that can claim Baraboo as their home.
So, does having a handful of the largest circuses in the world based in your town make you the circus capital of the world? Well, it does when you hear this next fact.
Wisconsin is the mother of circuses. We're over 100 in this state, the most of any state.
So you got 100 circuses based out of one state, and the biggest 5 in the world are based out of this little town. Okay, I'm starting to think Baraboo is the circus capital of the world. But how did it all get started in the first place?
The Ringlings, they got infatuated with the circus when they were growing up on the banks of the Mississippi down in McGregor, Iowa. And the family moved here. The dad was a harness maker, and they all knew trades, but they never lost sight of wanting to start a circus. So they traveled for 2 years with a little variety show, raised $1,000, and that's what they started their circus with.
Even back in the 1890s, a $1,000 show couldn't have been considered the greatest show on earth.
Right. So these 5 brothers got together, started this circus. What were some of their first expansions? Like, oh, let's hire an acrobat, or oh, let's buy an elephant. What were some of those small steps?
Well, they started out, they didn't have any exotic animals with them. They had dogs and ponies, and that was about it.
Dog and pony
It
show.
was a dog and pony show, right. They had a few big horses, but that was it. Their first exotic animal was a blind hyena, which of course they thought was a great attraction. They could exhibit this grave-robbing behemoth of biblical writ. and so they did that, and then the next year they found a way to get 2 elephants and brought them back, and the show just kept growing and growing and growing.
From 1884 on, the Ringling organization continued to grow into one of the world's largest entertainment companies, operating the 3 biggest circuses in the world from right here in Baraboo. But David said there were other circuses here too, besides the Ringlings.
And then their first cousins got into the action, the Gomer brothers.
Okay.
That was 1891.
And the Gomer Brothers Circus came in right behind the Ringlings, quickly becoming the 4th largest circus in the country. I wanted to talk with some folks who really had a connection to the circuses here in Baraboo. So who better to meet with than Sandra Gomer Edwards and Gail Gomer Phillips, direct descendants of the Gomer brothers and big supporters of the Circus World Museum. So that's where we sat down to talk.
How'd your family get into the circus business?
They started just with a winter day, I think, discussion after talking about what they wanted to do, and they kind of entered into it by thinking of the Ringling Brothers and starting from there.
Seeing as how the Gomers quickly became the 4th largest circus in the country, and seeing as how the Gomers and Ringlings were first cousins, I just had to ask.
Was there any sort of a rivalry because they were both in the circus business?
No, I'd say no,
They
definitely.
were all happy for one another.
Very good. They'd stand up for each other's weddings, or they were just close cousins, actually.
So, I wasn't surprised with Gail's answer about Baraboo being the circus capital of the world.
Well, I just think from the Ringlings going way back as to start, and then the Gomers, and then the wagon builders were from here. And I just think family connections, family ties.
Just like the Ringling operation, the Gomer Brothers Circus had a humble start.
They had a bear and a couple of monkeys and some horses. It was what they call a mud show because it was all horse-pulled wagons.
The show didn't stay small for long. They quickly went from being a wagon show to a rail show. So I asked the sisters if there was some secret to circus growth.
You have to have elephants.
Bet.
Okay.
Yes. Al Ringling said to our grandfather at one time, the Gomer show only had 1 elephant. And Al was he was one of the brothers in the other show. And he said, Fred, he said, you can't just have 1 elephant. You've got to have 2 elephants. And then you've got a herd.
And you got to remember, this is way before TV, radio, and the internet, so you had to get the word out to sell the seats.
I think they ended up with 2 railroad cars, or 3, that were just to advertise crews. These crews would go out and they would find a place. They didn't have billboards in those days, so they'd use sides of buildings or barns, anything like that, and they'd put up posters. They'd plaster posters all over.
Okay.
And sometimes they'd run into wars with other circuses.
And they take down each other's posters?
No, they'd go right over the top of them. Yeah, they did.
But all in all, the 4 biggest circuses in the world, based here in Baraboo, were pretty clean operations.
Ringlings and the Gomers were known as Sunday school shows because they were clean.
When it came to the biggest circus companies, the most shocking part of their shows was probably the unusual human acts and oddities, like the world's tallest lady, the world's smallest man, or a snake charmer. For the most part, it was just good, clean fun. Maybe that's what kept their shows successful for so long. It's definitely what you'll find here at the center of all things circus, the Circus World Museum.
We are the brainchild of John M. Kelly, who was the attorney for the Ringling Brothers themselves. He retired to Baraboo in the late 40s and knew the buildings were right here, saw the business changing, wanted to preserve the classic circus he knew and loved, and he talked to everybody he possibly could. Got together with members of the Gomer family, and together they started Circus World.
It's a great spot for the whole family. It's just like having the circus come to your own hometown.
We've got magic shows, the circus performances, elephant demonstrations. You get your chance to try circus skills, walking a tightrope and things like that. We got the
Do you carry good insurance?
Oh, we never have an accident.
Oh, okay, good, good.
Even if you're not the type to walk a tightrope, there's every piece of circus history here you could ever imagine. This was the actual site of Ringling Brothers' winter quarters, and their old buildings are full of circus artifacts like costumes and props, historical posters and documents. And it's not just about the Ringlings, it's from every circus company you could ever imagine. There's also several displays devoted to circus transportation and just the plain brute strength of putting on a circus. In the beginning, all the work was done by either humans or animals. Then gas-powered engines joined the circus to do some of the work. But the real grunt work was revolutionized when caterpillars joined the circus. No, not the green slimy ones, the shiny yellow ones. Their impact was so big, the museum devotes a whole wall to the machines that finally gave elephants and horses a little rest. Circus World Museum also has the largest collection of circus wagons in the world, from every circus you can imagine, most of them restored to their original condition. There's every style you can think of, from the ornate gold leaf encrusted models to the more simple versions used by cowboy shows. If you catch one of the guided tours, you'll get to hear a fully restored Gavioli band organ. It was built in Paris in 1905, but sat in a Kansas barn for 40 years before being rebuilt and put back into service. The air-powered instruments on board can produce the sound of an 80-piece band. Just insert the right cardboard deck of instructions and it can play almost anything. These circus wagons started out being the only way to transport shows from one city to another, so the circuses only moved a few miles at a time, usually overnight and on muddy roads from one small town to another. As the shows got bigger, they graduated to the most modern form of transportation at the time, and here at the museum, they've got that piece of circus history covered too. More than anything else, Circus World Museum is just a place to have fun.
It's all great fun, and that's really what our business is fun, providing fun for people.
You don't dress like this at night when you go home, do you?
Yes,
or around town?
I do. No, no, no. I'm very normal when I'm away from here.
Okay. And what's your name?
I'm Roger.
Oh, okay.
Actually, Dave and Roger the Clown, otherwise known as Neil Scoy, both have huge roles in the performances here at the museum. It may not be the greatest show on earth, but it's definitely one of the greatest stops you can make when you're checking out circuses and circus history. Here's my advice when you